Footballtribeug channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. Welcome back to yet another live broadcast on your favorite footballer updates channel. It's a pleasure to be back on this on this Wednesday night, the 3rd of September. It's 22 minutes past the hour of 11 p.m. Apologies for the lateness. I was concluding some tasks. And yet I still have more to get done before I call it a night. Anyways, it's good to be back. It's good to be here. We will be looking at some surprise omissions from the UEFA Champions League squads that have been named by clubs, because that's what's making the ones. Otherwise, thank you so much for those that have labored to visit the channel, to go under the video section and check out some of our most recent content. It's low. It's very few viewers or views. I must mention. It's not very encouraging, but yeah, life has its ups and downs, and for us at the moment, that's one of them. But we will move on with that. We will continue to deliver to you the best content that there is. Hi, LFC. How was school today? How are you doing? How has been your Wednesday? Did you enjoy school today? Is school even enjoyable? It should be in one form or the other. It has its up, shenanigans here and there. But yeah, it's good to be back. So Federico, Chiesa, and Gabriel are some of those omitted from their respective, UEFA Champions League squads. Facundo Buonanotte has been omitted from that UEFA Champions League squad for Chelsea, according to reports. So, I mean, like I said, football has its ugly side. Sorry, I can't stay for long. I'm quite sick. Sorry about that. I wish you a quick recovery for whatever it is that is, bothering you at the moment. We do wish you a quick recovery and that. All right. Have yourself a blessed night, LFC. I thank you all for sparing a minute, even if it's 1 minute. We do not take it for granted. So, anyways, guys, allow me have our audios tested. Make sure everything does check out on my secondary device, and before we continue for tonight's broadcast. So, yeah. And so, meanwhile, like I said, that's going to be the gist of our conversation. And for the new community members, you're most welcome to the Footballtribe channel. Those that watch us from close and far, we do come to you live from Kampala, Uganda, every single morning at 9 a.m. Although today we were a bit late, we did come at 10 a.m. Then in the evening at 11 p.m. So today will come about 22 minutes past the hour of 11 p.m. So apologies on that. To all our usual suspects that have not been on the scene quite often in recent weeks or so, Pressing Kosi, Safa Ali, Peter Parker, Tester of Life, the Yellow Diak, and every single one of you guys out there. I hope everything is okay with you. I hope you're healthy. I hope nothing is happening to you, nothing regrettable or bad. So, and I hope that you do join us as soon rather than later in the near future. So, anyways, that's basically that's what we'll be looking at tonight. That's what we're going to digest. Remember, the respective leagues are all for international break. So the international break is on. Allow me adjust something. Okay. Oh, all right. Anyways, it is what it is. It is what it is in that regard. So, like I was saying, is it a surprise omission for Gabriel Jesus? Not in my opinion. That he's been omitted from the UEFA Champions League squad for Arsenal. It's not a surprise, really. And in any case, he's only omitted until the end of the league phase. After the league phase, those adjustments are made and players get to feature at the knockout stages if their teams do qualify. The reason as to why it's not a surprise for me is because we're talking about a player who's been out of action since January through that anterior cruciate ligament injury that he did suffer. So we know he underwent surgery. He's been on a very, very long and lonely road at recovery. The reason as to why I call it long, is because you can't feel isolated. Sometimes even when you're surrounded by people, because oftentimes our respective careers have that grasp on us. There's a way we are attached to them. They're more or less an addiction, but the out of passion for those respective careers. Take an example: a journalist. Do you think journalists ever retire? Even when they retire, like formally, their journalistic instincts remain. Every now and then, they look at something and they look at it as news. They look at events and they're like, that's newsworthy. They look at occasions or occurrences in life, and they look at that as that's a story to write. So for a person like me, I mean, every time I look at things happening around, I look at that sports news. I look at things from my marketing perspective in that line of work, because I do digital marketing and social media consultancy, social media management, and things like that. I look at certain things with brands, and I'm thinking to myself, maybe they should have done this. That was done well. Maybe they should tweak it like this. You get the point. So even for football players, especially when they're off during injury, they get to watch a game and they're thinking to themselves more like the way fans watch the game. But fans watch it with, I think, a different perspective. But what I intend to mean is that when they are watching that game, it can be lonely because they look at those players and admire them. They look at them with admiration, saying, I should be on that pitch. I should be on that pitch. So, it's more like being, you remember COVID-19 when countries were in lockdown and everything like that, everything was in lockdown. Oftentimes, I think during lockdown, that's how we came to appreciate more the freedom of movement, just to be able to move from one place to another. That's when we appreciated it most. And because suddenly we had become prisoners of life. We had become prisoners of circumstance, where people were confined in their homes, and things like that. So for football players, when they're out injured, especially for very long spells like Gabriel Jesus, Rodrigo Cascante, players like Nicolo Zaniolo, players like Rob Holding, players like Thibaut Courtois. I'm talking about players that have suffered anterior cruciate ligament injuries. Look at a player like Jamal Musiala. He had only just returned from a very long-term injury, and then he broke his ankle, and he had to go out for another 3 to 4 months. So you can imagine how depressing, how lonely that environment can be in its own nature. When you're on your road to recovery, especially during that stage when there's not much you can do, because it takes a lot of time, depending on the nature of your injury, to even be allowed to walk by yourself, to be allowed to lift something as simple as a weight. Forget the actual mass of that weight. But because they're telling you, do not put pressure on the body, do not put pressure on your knee or your ankle or your what, depending on whatever it is. So it must be a depressing zone to be in. But nonetheless, so like the point I'm trying to make is that I do understand why Arsenal omitted Gabriel Jesus, because they know that even when he returns, he's not going to be fully fit. It's going to take him a lot of time for him to get fully fit. it's going to take him a bit of time to gel in. And what they are looking at in this particular circumstance is that one, they have a game against Portville that will be coming next month in the Carabao Cup at the third round. Then when they return from the international break, they're going to be facing Nottingham Forest, in between which they have a game against Athletic Bilbao. So that's in the UEFA Champions League. We all know he's not going to be ready for the start of, maybe by the time we are halfway through those games, which is 8 games that every team ought to play. By the time we are halfway through those 8 games, maybe he may have recovered fully. He may have started, playing some games, maybe coming off the bench. We do not know for sure. So, and because of the nature of injury that he's come from, we just saw Lodri suffer a minor setback, although it turned out to be shorter than earlier had been feared. But that notwithstanding, the club will be cognizant of the fact that with such injuries, the player can easily have a setback. And we're talking about Gabriel Jesus, who had a knee problem, because ever since he came to Arsenal, beyond that first season, he's sort of struggled through injury. He's been on and off the pitch, kind of. So they are well aware of his physique, of his struggles with injuries. So they know. So I don't know what kind of feeling he must be having as a player, but I suspect that he will take it with the same strength or well-intendedness that it is meant for, recognizing that he's out injured at the moment. One would argue, how about Kai Havertz? How about Bukayo Saka? How about Ben White? How about Christian Norgard? All these are Arsenal players that have suffered injuries or that are nursing injuries. Majority of whom have gone on to miss out on the international break through injury. William Saliba. Now the difference is for some of those, their injuries are short term, and by short term I mean at least 1 month or so. Thereabout. We cannot sit down and compare 1 month to 7-8 months. We just can't do that. So that's, in that case, it's pretty understandable. So anyways, in any case, this should only be a motivation for Gabriel Jesus to work even harder to get himself fit, and not just to get fit, but to stay fit for the length of time, because we know that playing time is not going to just come out easily, especially given the kind of squad that Arsenal have. What role does he play in that team? Where you would play as a number 9, you have Victor Gyökeres, maybe Kai Havertz returns faster than you, and if it does return faster than you, he's going to play football ahead of you. If you want to play off the right wing, we know Noni Madueke is available. Bukayo Saka is absent through injury, but Max Dorman is in, is available. You look at the left wing, Leandro Trossard, Gabriel Martinelli, Ebeleche Eze, all those can play there. You can sort of revert Noni Madueke himself to play down that side. So meanwhile, Max Dorman has been included in Arsenal's UEFA Champions League squad. If he gets to feature in any of those fixtures, he could easily go down as the youngest player to feature in the UEFA Champions League. I mean, he doesn't turn 16 until what? Sometime in December. So, that says it all. He's a high school kid who gets to play football on the weekend. And now these ones are going to be weekdays. So, but we'll wait and see if a part of me feels that Mikel Arteta will be looking at least to find that opportunity to give him a couple of minutes, even if it's for one game. His inclusion in the UEFA Champions League squad is not meant to necessarily say he's going to be regularly coming off the bench, because if Arsenal have a fully fit squad, he may find his own playing time shrinking. Same way you must feel for Miles Lewis-Kelly and Ethan Nwaneri. If that squad is fully fit, of course, Martin Odegaard is going to get the nod ahead. Ebeleche Eze is going to get the nod ahead. So for some players, playing time is going to sort of shrink in one way or the other. But then they will have to rely on the manager's rotational times for them to get game time, which I believe should be priority, by the way. I think Arsenal, given how they were accosted by injuries last season, they cannot just bet on luck this time around to say for every single game we'll be fielding our team A. Oftentimes we're going to have to see team B, not in its entirety, but for example, I would love to see sometime in mid of the season, Bukayo Saka have to come off the bench, and Noni Madueke is starting ahead of him. I would love to see Martin Odegaard come off the bench. If you're playing a game against Burnley at home, you should be giving one of those at least a rest, a rotation. Let the Eze start, let the Ethan Nwaneri start. You don't have to flip the entire side, but you can't go for it. If you're playing a home game against a team like what? Crystal Palace can be stubborn. If you're playing a home game against Sunderland, and this is not to say that I do undermine those sides, but I'm saying Arsenal's squad is good enough that we shouldn't be waiting for injuries to cause changes. So in such a game, I wouldn't be surprised if Christian Mosquera is starting ahead of William Saliba, just because you've chosen to rotate. I wouldn't be surprised if Ricardo Carafiori is starting at left centre back and Gabriel Magalhaes is being rested, and you have Pierre Hincap playing at left back, or Miles Lewis Kelly, and Ben White is starting at right back. Maybe even Kepa Arrizabalaga gets to start in goal, although goalkeepers are, hardly rotated. So anyways, that for me is the expectation. Of course, we saw that video, that I think the last video post made by Gabriel Jesus was on August the 24th, when he was showing his road recovery, his onto the grass, training, doing some ball work here and there. It's now been it's been over a week ever since that we saw that video. We do not know what kind of progress is made in that last 1 week. I wouldn't imagine it's too much. Maybe it's the intensity that is sort of improving or being increased. And given that most of Arsenal's players are away for international break, he will get the chance to, maybe if allowed, to have a kick about with some of those young boys that have remained at the club. Excuse me. Although many of those that have remained are out through injury. Anyways, but he's out of Arsenal's UEFA Champions League squad, and I thought that's significant news worth discussing. Still maintaining on players that have been omitted from their UEFA Champions League squad is Federico Chiesa. Now, Chiesa has been omitted from Liverpool's UEFA Champions League squad. Now, for me, this one is a bit of a surprise for me, and the reason for that is because I've seen really an impressive Federico Chiesa. When he came on in that game against Arsenal, he looked sharp. You remember when he came on against FC Bournemouth, he looked sharp. He even scored a goal that made it 3-1. I think that was around the 86th minute. So, it's you say, I'm not Bob, says Chiesa not being in the squad is disrespect. Slot always finds a way to piss me off even more. That's I'm not Bob saying hi. Hi, I'm not Bob. I kindly like the broadcast, but it's a pleasure to have you on here. So, like I said, for me, it's a surprise for me. Unlike that of Gabriel Jesus, like I've just explained, for me, this is a bit of a surprise for me. And the reason as to why I say this is particularly, like I said, early start into the season, he's shown what he's capable of offering Liverpool when he comes off the bench. We do all, I think, suspect or agree or even know that he's not going to get so many games as a starter. So he himself knows that one too well. during the course of the transfer window, there was speculation that he could leave the club to find more playing time, because that's what Gennaro Gattuso, the new Italian national team manager, did recommend, that he gets to find, a team where he can play regular football, because they want him available, possibly if they do qualify for the FIFA World Cup in 2026. But all that notwithstanding, I feel that including Riongo Moho in that UEFA Champions League squad ahead of Federico Chiesa, I don't know. I don't even know how to interpret that. I don't know how to interpret that. I mean, for a player of his experience, for a player that can, because yes, all these youngsters, the Max Doman, the Rio Ngomoho, they are good players. But let's not forget, they're kids, and maybe they could come up to be very, very unique kids, the way we saw Lamine Yamal, or the way we are seeing Lamine Yamal make his progress. But for a player of Federico Chiesa's stature, and guys, I talk about Federico Chiesa as a player I got to, really, really appreciate at Juventus, a player that I saw help Italy literally win the Euro 2020 that was played in 2021 when they beat England in the final on penalties. That's the kind of player I'm talking about. He was a very, very dominant player during that tournament, as much as Manuel Locatelli, So for him to be omitted in Liverpool's Champions League squad, like Bob puts it, is disrespectful in a way, especially bearing in mind that you've managed to create room for a 16-year-old. We're talking about a player who came off the bench in the finals of the Carabao Cup last season and scored what turned out to be Liverpool's only consolation, and he looked really, really sharp. In any case, there was a moment where he thought he was getting an equalizer, but it just didn't go for him, really. So he's that kind of impact player that you can't always have on your bench, even though, like I said, we may all agree, he may not be a starter, but I mean, it's just harsh. It's just harsh on the player. Like I said, I do not know how players interpret this, but this is going to, sort of hurt enough in Federico Chiesa. We all know that most of these players, or if not all of these players that do find themselves at such gigantic clubs, they want to play in the UEFA Champions League. Because while the Premier League is a very, very highly followed league, I think the UEFA Champions League is followed even more, because it has that whole European perspective to it, and everything in that regard. So Riongo Mohor to be, included in that UEFA Champions League squad at the expense of Federico Chiesa, I mean, is a bitter one for me. Now, according to the UEFA rules, they do stipulate that teams can name a squad of up to 25 players for their UEFA competitions. Eight of those 25 need to be locally trained, and they are split into two different categories. Ngomoho does not count as a locally trained player, as he was signed from Chelsea last year, So that's according to the Athletic. Bob says, what infuriates me even more is that Slot waited until the transfer window closes, so Chiesa rots on the bench for 6 more months instead of leaving. I mean, I'm sure that should be the pain point for Federico Chiesa, because we know he was open to leaving the club. He wanted to leave the club as much as he loves the club. That it's true, he does love the club, but he knew that he was not going to get enough playing time. He wanted to explore a move away. Now, after Liverpool lost Luis Diaz, of course, in addition to the demise of Diogo Jota, may his soul rest in peace, alongside his brother Andre Silva, and then subsequently losing Darwin Núñez, who left for Al Hilal. Liverpool made the assessment, particularly because of Luis Diaz's departure, was look, with Luis Diaz having left the club, you're going to have more minutes, more playing time, which was a very logical sort of conclusion to make. But also Liverpool knew that Riongo Moho was there. We're talking about a kid that did not just start shining at that game against Newcastle by scoring that winning goal. We had seen glimpses of that during pre-season. We had seen glimpses of that during pre-season. So for Liverpool, I do agree with you that for Liverpool to wait until the end of the transfer window to then bring, because clubs map out these things like early in time. Yes, they remain subject to change until they make formal submissions, but they have a picture of how they want to assemble themselves. I'm almost 100% certain that if Mark Gay had joined Liverpool, he would be in that squad. And not because he doesn't deserve it. He should be. He would have really qualified to be in it. And so does Federico Chiesa. So I understand wanting to give, because for a player like Riongo Moho, giving him minutes in the Premier League, giving him minutes in the Carabao Cup, and subsequently when it comes to January, maybe the FA Cup, that should be enough. That should be sufficient, And then you have Federico Chiesa included in that UEFA Champions League squad. Maybe there are other mitigating circumstances or factors that you and I are not privy to, That's the only reservation I would have, or the disclaimer that I would have in this particular case. But I do not want to believe that's the case, So because Riongo Moho is not even being considered to be a locally trained player, because that squad of 25 players ought to have at least 8 players, to be locally trained, and is not considered as such because he only signed last season from Chelsea. Nichi fans, hi Nichi fan, good to have you on the broadcast. It's been a while. It's been a while since you last stand up for our broadcasts. What happened? I hope you're doing okay. For all our usual suspects that have not been with us in a while, can you rate my all-time 11, please? Your all-time 11. What do you mean by that? You want to give us, your all-time 11? Yeah, give it, and I'll give you my views on it. Give it, bring it in the comment section, and we will discuss it. So, but I hope you're doing okay. I hope while you are away, nothing bad had happened, that everything was, for the right reasons or for good reasons, because sometimes people disappear in our lives, and in this particular case on my broadcast, for very unpleasant reasons. Sometimes people have family issues, some people are ill, and we do not know because we're not in daily contact in the manner of at a friendly level that the contact is personal, so we only get to interact on these broadcasts. But I hope for whatever the reason was, that you're doing okay. So are people like Ishmael, are people like the Yellow Dayak, are people like Test of Life, Pressing Kosi, Kayode from Nigeria, Tristan, Snow LFC, Boss Royal, Safa Ali, and so many others. I've not seen them in a bit, and a part of me does worry from at a human level that I hope they are okay. So, but back to the Chiesa conversation. He must really feel hard done by that he has been omitted from Liverpool's UEFA Champions League squad, because there was a lot of interest from teams in Italy, but they never got to sign him because Liverpool chose to keep him. Liverpool chose to keep him, and maybe they were justified in wanting to keep him. But he does not deserve this kind of treatment, to be left out of that UEFA Champions League squad. Then the other player that has been left out of their squad, or of the UEFA Champions League squad, is Facundo Buonanotte at Chelsea. Now, Facundo Buonanotte, signed late for Chelsea in the transfer window on a season-long loan from Brighton. It has no obligation to buy, so it's only a loan deal, and he's been omitted from the Chelsea's UEFA Champions League squad. Now, for those of you that have been with us for a good chunk of time on this particular channel, you remember that during the course of the transfer window, I kept for so many players that were being linked with the potential move to Arsenal. Sorry, with the potential move to Chelsea, including Alejandro Garnacho, Xavi Simons. My question for them was, and sometimes it's very unfortunate that we cannot, put these questions right down to them. But anyways, we just get to assess situations. My question was always, what attracts these players to join Chelsea, knowing that Chelsea already has a very broad squad where they could struggle for playing time? Look at Keenan Dewsbury Hall, joined from Leicester City. Of course, it was a big move. It's understandable. You're leaving Leicester City, who had only been promoted to the Premier League, to join Chelsea, and you are going with the manager that trusts you. I understood that. But look, assess him. Even when the manager loved him so much, he did not get a lot of playing time, especially in the Premier League. He got to feature multiple times in the UEFA Conference League, but that was it. Now, I look at a player like Facundo Buonanotte, and I'm thinking to myself, do you honestly think you're going to get sufficient playing time in that Chelsea team, whether as a starter on a given day or whether as a bench player? Do you think you're going to get sufficient time? Because if we go and look at the Chelsea squad, it's a broad squad. Even though they moved on the most players, Nichifan, let's come and discuss your team in a bit. Allow me to conclude on Facundo Buonanotte in just a bit. When you look at Chelsea squad, as a whole team, I mean, it's a very, very broad squad. It's a very, very broad squad. So you do ask yourself, where are you going to play? Where are you going to play? Really? Where are you going to play? Players like Mark Bowie had left on loan to Sunderland because there was not going to be enough playing time for them. Mukal Modric, that one we cannot count because we know his problems. But there's William Estaval, Tariq George, Alejandro Garnacho, Jamie Gittens, Cole Palmer, Pedro Neto. All these are players. Chelsea have an amazing squad. Estaval has to play with Palmer. I mean, that remains to be seen. Yes, they do have an amazing squad. That's true. That's true. But again, we're talking about a team. Next summer, they're already expecting to receive a Jovan Quenda from Sporting CP just next summer. We know how many players that they've loaned out. A great deal of many players have gone out from Chelsea on loan. Others have gone out on permanent transfers because they knew that staying at Chelsea meant that their playing time was going to further shrink. It was already shrinking. Keenan Dewsbury Hall, Joao Felix, Raheem Sterling are stayed, but not because that's what he would prefer, but because Chelsea could not find a team that wanted to sign him for maybe the amount of money they wanted to sign him for, or even that could meet his wage demands. Because apparently at Chelsea is on 300,000 grand a week, and he still has 3 years left for his current contract. If you're Raheem Sterling and you're 29, maybe clocking 30, why would you leave that unless it is being compensated to you for your contract to be terminated, and then you find a greener pasture, a place elsewhere? Why would you be leaving that kind of money, knowing that sooner or later you're staring down retirement? Nichifan says, I feel like Chelsea will buy Baleba next season. They will play him alongside Caicedo at the ultimate defense. I mean, I cannot rule that out. And the reason as why I can't rule out that is because every time Romeo Lavia was fully fit, we saw him being played. We saw him being played alongside Moises Caicedo in a double pivot. And then ahead of them was Enzo Fernandez, and then Cole Palmer pushed to the sides. You remember in that game against PSG in the finals of the FIFA Club World Cup, again, for those that were part of this, this community, I remember telling them that, look, anywhere Chelsea gets a chance in that game is if they sacrifice one of their wingers to accommodate an extra midfielder to help in suffocating PSG. And they did just that, although they did it in a different way. I think he did it using Richie James. I stand to be corrected, but I think he did it using Richie James, So, and then Cole Palmer played almost as a winger, down the right wing, So was it down the right wing or the left wing? I think the right wing, the right wing, yes. So, and also I did tell Manchester United fans during the course of this transfer window that them waiting to sign Carlos Baleba next summer, they risk facing bigger competition for him than they would have faced during this course of the transfer window. For example, we know that Liverpool have been scouring the market for a central midfielder, and they've never gotten that ideal central midfielder. You remember they attempted to sign Moises Caicedo, they attempted to sign Martin Zubimendi, they wanted to sign Romeo Lavia, they missed out on those two to Chelsea, and then Zubimendi has ended up at Arsenal. So, and they ended up signing Wataru Endo as the last resort in that transfer window. Now, we know Wataru Endo is already above that, and sooner or later, is going to be the next position they look to strengthen, because they've done significant work for the goalkeeper. Looking at that, Alson Ramsey-Becker will be soon exiting. They have Georgi Mamadashvili from Valencia, signed for about £30 million. You look at left back, they've already brought in a young Milos Kakes, 21 years of age. Andy Robertson is about 30. You look at right back, Jeremy Frimpong. They also have Conor Bradley in that same role. You come to attacking midfield, Florian Wirtz is only 22. You look at Ryan Gravenberch, McAllister, Soboslai, well sorted. You look at their forward line, Hugo Ekitike, 23, Alexander Isak turns 26 this month. You have Riongo Moho, you have Cody Gakpo is only 26 years of age. So in that central midfield could be the next place they look to strengthen. And that's where I feel that Manchester United could face competition for his signature, for Carlos Baleba's signature. You never know. Even Barcelona comes for him. You never know it's Bayern Munich that comes for him, because that midfield, sooner or later, Joshua Kimmich is predominantly played as a right back. Leon Goretzka is not growing any young. Maybe Pavlovic will need a new partner. You never know. Vincent Kompany looks at Carlos Baleba's, from Brighton. Remember, they've let go of Joao Paulinho, although it's only on loan to Tottenham Hotspur. He's already above 30. They could be looking to move him on permanently if he impresses at Tottenham Hotspur. So the whole outlook about that is that Man United could face competition for Carlos Baleba, and Chelsea is among those that could be suitors. Real Madrid could simply say, yes, we have Aurelio Tchouameni, we have Eduardo Camavinga, but something is lacking. Maybe we move on Camavinga, remain with Tchouameni, and add in Carlos Baleba. They could do that. I do seem to remember a time when they had Sami Khedira, they had Xabi Alonso, and then they signed Asia Illarramendi from, I think, Sociedad at the time. And then, of course, Alonso eventually moved on and went to Bayern Munich. But there's a time when they had so many central midfielders. So you never know. Real Madrid could also come calling. So let's not rule that out. So thank you so much, Nichifen, for bringing that, to the table for discussion that Manchester United could lose. Actually could face significant competition, or that Chelsea could come in for Carlos Baleba. Then you also say your football knowledge is excellent, sir. Thank you so much for the compliment. Chelsea will buy him, or Liverpool, maybe even City. Exactly. You reminded us of Manchester City. Now, yes, Man City, yes, have Nico Gonzalez, who they signed in January from FC Porto, quite expensively, by the way. But Rodri is not getting any younger. Yes, they are discussing renewing his contract until June 28, but he's not growing any younger. Sooner or later, they will need a replacement, whether it is with Pep Guardiola or a different manager in charge. Man City could come calling. So you look at Mateo Kovacic, he's already 30. So these are some of players that very sooner or later could be moving on. And Carlos Baleba is only 21 at the moment, So that's also true. So they could move on. Mateo Kovacic, in fact, at the start of the window, there were reports that they could move him on. But maybe Pep Guardiola reassessed his midfield and said, maybe we should keep him. They've moved on Ilkay Gundogan. Anyways, you remember, I think it was the summer of 2023. No, the summer of 2024, Manchester City wanted to sign Lucas Paqueta to add to their midfield. Now, of course, we know the problems that came for Lucas Paqueta being investigated for those, anti-betting charges and things, violations like that. Although the two, players are of different profiles and different roles in midfield, they're still midfielders, and we know how Pep Guardiola can be creative with midfielders. If you can get a right back like Phil Plum at Bayern Munich to play in midfield, if you can get Joao Cancelo to play as a winger or a midfielder, what is not to say that he cannot get a player like Carlos Baleba play in a more advanced midfield role? So that's true. I certainly agree with you. It could be Manchester City that comes for him. You say either way, but Baleba is the next Moises Caicedo. I certainly do agree. Barcelona, you're right. They could come for him. Baleba is the ultimate midfielder. For me, pure class. I think they will move on Rodri. Baleba will be the best midfielder that's ever played at the game. He's stronger and faster than Haaland. Now, of course, for me, given that he's still only 21, we've seen how good he is. There's only room for improvement. I think I sort of look at him. My view of him is, in a way, he's like a faster version of N'Golo Kante, a very, very effective player, hard to bully off the ball and that kind of thing, really. So he's that good. If he can remain consistent, I think he's going to go on to achieve a very, very, a big heights. But this whole conversation emanates from, Facundo Buonanotte being omitted from that UEFA Champions League squad for Chelsea, and one that I thought that's a very good comparison with Kante. Thank you so much, Nichifan. So, I mean, when at his unveiling for Facundo Buonanotte, he was saying that he gets the chance to play UEFA Champions League football. That was the biggest attraction for him to join Chelsea. And guess what? You're omitted from the UEFA Champions League squad. How painful must that be for a player like him? Imagine saying that the only reason you're going to KFC is to get those sticky wings of chicken, and then you only to reach there, and they tell you after you've sat down, they've given you the starters, and then they tell you, no, we've taken sticky wings off the menu. You'll be disappointed. So same applies for Facundo Buonanotte. Anyways, Anichifan, let's discuss how your starting 11 of all time. Okay, you say he will reach his peak at 25. Baleba will be like the Terminator at 25. No one will be better. I'll play him in the 8th. Okay, let's hope if he can remain injury free, if he can continue to progress, stay humble, he will indeed go on to achieve great heights. So let's now discuss your best 11 of all time. You're going for a 4-3-3 kind of system. You're choosing Gigi Buffon in goal. You're going for Nuno Mendes at left back, Maldini, Thiago Silva, Achraf Hakimi, Baleba, Clarence Seedorf, Lionel Messi, Alexander Isak, Cristiano Ronaldo, and Neymar. Wow. Now, let me ask. Let me ask. Oh, you support Cameroon? Okay, that's interesting. Let me ask. In this team where you have Neymar, you have Cristiano, you have Isaac, you have Messi. Those are four forwards. So and yet it's a 3-3. Who is playing as your attacking midfielder? Is it Messi? Is it Neymar? Because I mean, if because I would assume Isaac is the outright striker. I would assume Cristiano Ronaldo is playing off the left wing. Maybe Messi is playing off the right wing, and then Neymar plays as the sort of number 10 kind of player, behind the lead striker. Okay, we'll take that those as the assumptions. Okay, good to know that I'm right as guessing that right. I mean, it's a very good team. For your best 11 of all time, it's a very, very good team. Gigi Buffon, I mean, one of the best goalkeepers that is ever played the game. In the same, he falls in the same bracket with Iker Casillas, Manuel Neuer, Peter Schmeichel, Peter Cech, maybe Thibaut Courtois. I'll put him in those brackets with those goalkeepers. So I wouldn't disagree with you on that, although maybe perhaps my own choice would be different. You love how I said far. Thank you. Thank you. Then at left back, you're going for Nuno Mendes. I mean, I've seen a great deal of, very, very talented left backs. I would want to pick your mind on what you think about Ashley Cole, on what you think about a player like Marcelo Lippi, formerly at Real Madrid. Which other player at left back? Patrice Evra was good, but not great. I think he was good, but not great. There's a couple of those. Really. So, but anyways, I'd like to pick your mind on those ones, But okay, you're going for Nuno Mendes. I feel I do not know. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel your choice of Nuno Mendes is based on what we've seen him, particularly last season, and what he's been immaculate, so immaculate that for me, in a different world, he should be, or in a different season, or on another day, should be among the contenders of the FIFA, of the Ballon d'Or, because I mean he's won it all with PSG. He went on to win the UEFA Nations League with Portugal. He's been that impressive. That is without a doubt, and he's been arguably the best left back there is at the moment in world football. Because you shutting down Bukayo Saka, shutting down Mo Salah is very, very impressive. I do understand that. You say Cole, Marcelo, Carlos, yes, Roberto Carlos, Evra, all good. Yes, best on last season. He is the best in the game. Yes. So the reason as to why personally I would have a different view is while Nuno Mendes was so brilliant, is I want to see him stand the test of time, to get to do these things over and over again, over 5 years and more. The reason as to why Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo are so appreciated in the game today is because they managed to stay at the top for more than 15 years. You can imagine. For more than 15 years, at the very top, every single season, year in, year out, they stayed there. That's what differentiates them from Neymar. That's what differentiates. So that would be my argument. But present day, like I said, there's no better left back. Again, I would have the same sentiments when it comes to right back. Where is Cafu? Where is Gary Neville was good. Gary Neville was good. At right back. I mean, where defenders like Yap Stam, where defenders like Ronald Koeman, where defenders like what's his name? His name is eluding me. Steve Bruce. You know. So really, I mean, yes. So I understand Akraf Hakimi. Like I said, I think I would use the same words that I've used on Nuno Mendes last season. Very impressive, very impressive. Everything he touched, every little thing Akraf Hakimi touched, literally turned to gold. The way he plays down that right wing, going forth and backwards, is very impressive. Is very impressive. And it's like I keep saying, it's hard to argue against some of these names that you put forward. However, I feel that they've been biased, but by what they managed to do last season. You know, so in the last campaign alone, he scored I think 4 goals and provided 6 assists. That was in the French League One alone. In the UEFA Champions League, 4 goals and 5 assists. So that goal contribution and assists. But then even when he's defending, he's top quality. Top quality. That I wouldn't argue against you. But in terms of all, because when you are submitting this, you said you all-time 11. So for me, when it comes to the keyword being all-time, that's where I would differ with you. Maybe to call on to players like Cafu, you know, to play in that role. But he's a very decent player. Then Paul Maldini, that one I'm not going to argue against that. Really, Thiago Silva, very impressive defender, but I think I'll choose differently. I mean, there's so many defenders that I can look at. John Terry, I mean, I look at Sergio Ramos, the things, and remember Sergio Ramos was a right back, and he got turned into a center back. I mean, it was very impressive, you know. Like I said, we could go back to the Yapstams of this world, Giorgio Chiellini, you know, Bazzagli. You remember that Juventus trio? You know, of Bonucci, Bazzagli, and Chiellini. Yes, Giorgio Chiellini, you know. You're saying John Terry wasn't that good? I mean, anyway, it's your opinion. In my opinion, he was good. In my opinion, he was better than Rio Ferdinand. Anyway, I don't know. I would first, in my opinion, I would put Virgil van Dijk ahead of Thiago Silva. In my opinion, even when we're talking about present day. So again, I would have a different player in that role. So, but yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one. So for Thiago Silva, I would have a different player. Then you come Carlos Baleba. Okay, maybe VVD. Take him. Okay. Stamp was injured. Okay. Okay. Let's go to the midfield. You've chosen Carlos Baleba, Clarence Seedorf. Now, my questions are going to be: where is Zinedine Zidane? Where's Claudio Makelele? Where's Michael Ballack? Where's Patrick Vieira? Where's Roy Keane? I mean, we're talking about players that have played in that central midfield role. Where's Sergio Busquets? Where's Rodri, a Ballon d'Or winner? I mean, yes, Carlos Baleba is good, but I wouldn't put him in the class A yet if I'm comparing him with those others. You know, Zidane headbutted Materazzi at the World Cup of 2006 in the finals. I know. By the way, he was supposed to win the Ballon d'Or that year, but that sort of indiscipline in the final costume for that headbutting of Materazzi. But I mean, that doesn't take away his talent and what he did for football. I know a good couple of people who appreciate him as their best player of all time. That's how good he was. Was Andrea Pirlo, you know? So if we are going to go down that path of central midfielders, you know, I mean, even N'Golo Kante, a World Cup winner in 2018, you know. So, I mean, because Carlos Baleba, I would put him in the same bracket with João Neves, Vitinha, in that sort of bracket, really. So, for me, I would have a different player in that fold. You know, I would have a different player in that fold. Then you mentioned, okay, we'll move on to Clarence Seedorf. I'm not going to disagree with you much on that one. It's just a matter of opinion on that one. Seedorf only ever received 2 red cards his entire career, and hardly any yellow cards. He was strong, tactical, and fast. Okay, yeah, that's all true, and I do appreciate that. Personally, I did not get to watch much of him, I must be honest. But yeah, the glimpse of him that I did catch in the later stages of his career, he was really, really good. But yeah, that's why for Seedorf, I'm not going to argue much against. But for Carlos Baleba, not for me, not for me. Let's go to your attacking midfield. You've chosen Neymar Santos Jr. Now, in that attacking midfield role, as your number 10, I mean, it's hard to argue against Neymar. But in terms of the naturality of the role, where's Iniesta? Where's Francesco Sola Fabregas? Where's Mesut Ozil? You know, where's Eden Hazard? Now, look at it in the perspective of my attacking midfielder is supposed to provide assist after assist. You know, given that you have Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi in the same team. But anyways, I'll leave the choice of name. I'll leave it at that. But where's Rivaldo? You know, where's Rivaldo? So for me, those are some of the best 10s that I can give you. You know, that I've had the chance to watch. You know, where's Ronaldinho Gaucho, the assist Moreira? Where's Ronaldinho Gaucho? Now, I mentioned Ronaldinho Gaucho, the assist Moreira. For me, is my favorite player of all time. I must be honest with you. So I'm a bit biased on that one. So I'll choose Ronaldinho ahead of Neymar Santos Jr. Even though his numbers were not as good as those of Neymar, I still choose him. I mean, the flair, the entertainment, bossing the field. You know, every time you watched him, you waited for a moment of entertainment from Ronaldinho Gaucho, and I think we got that. You say, but Neymar would have won 3 Ballon d'Ors if not Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo. Yes, yeah, I do agree with you. I mean, if James Lehmann had not been of the same age almost as Oliver Kahn, he would have been, you know, Germany's #1 goalkeeper for quite some time. If Marc-Andre ter Stegen was not born in the same era with Manuel Neuer, he would have had his chance at the German national team. You know, so those things unfortunately do happen. Yeah, you know, where look at England. I go back to World Cup 2006 when they had Sol Campbell, Rio Ferdinand, John Terry, all centre backs very, very good. That midfield, Paul Scholes, Frank Lampard, Steven Gerrard. I mean, they were all immaculate, but they could not really come good because they were of the same era, really. So, anyways, exactly, Neymar's stats were better. Yeah, his stats were better, but for me, I would go with Ronaldinho Gaucho any day. Okay, Messi, we're not going to debate that. It's just Messi. Unless somebody older than us would come here and say maybe they would go for a Diego Armando Maradona, they would go for a Pele, but I wouldn't want to argue against that. But that was called the golden generation, and they failed. Yeah, I mean, no. You're saying they were called the golden generation and they failed. Which generation of England has succeeded? And I mean, ever since after what 1966 when they won the World Cup. Yeah, 1966. I mean, what generation has been better? None. They played a couple of finals here and there, but none is yet to come good. So you know. Anyway, that team, I think, did it have Sir Matt Busby? You know, I mean, for me, by the way, for me, England, I when it comes to their national team, by the way, I've always wondered why is it that the kind of football that those players play at their club level, they never replicate it at the national team. Wayne Rooney, even at his very peak, he could never deliver for England. He could never deliver. The only thing he could deliver for them was during the Euro qualifiers, playing against Latvia, Albania, Macedonia, those countries. He was always banging in the goals. But come major tournaments, nah, zero. You remember when they went for World Cup 2010? I think the goalkeepers were the issue for England predominantly in that tournament. Because I remember they tried David James, it did not work. They brought in Robert Green, it did not work. I think even Paul Robinson was part of that squad, because they didn't care about winning, in your opinion. Okay, you say that's why you support Cameroon now, and because of Baleba. Okay, that's interesting. So for Lionel Messi, we're not going to debate about that. Cristiano Ronaldo, we're not going to debate about that. And those two greats deserve to be in your team. Now, you put Alexander Isak. Now, I love Alexander Isak, and I keep reminding people that as an Arsenal fan, I wanted Alexander Isak to really join Arsenal. And this was before he even went to Newcastle, because I'd watched him at Real Sociedad and he looked impressive. He wasn't scoring so many goals that would alarm you, but he looked impressive. Particularly that season when he got to play with Martin Odegaard, coming in on loan from Real Madrid, in that sort of setup. That's when I appreciated the player. But I wouldn't put him in the best 11 of all time, in my opinion. I mean, where is Ronaldo Nazario da Lima Sr.? Where is he? Where is Romario? If you want goals to be banged in, goal after goal, where is where is Pele? Where is George Opong? Where is he? I mean, if you're a man of numbers and statistics, go look at Zlatan Ibrahimovic's statistics. Look at those numbers. Look at those numbers. If you're a man of numbers, then I mean, we're still looking at strikers. Where's Gerd Muller? Sorry, but Isak is the best. Did you see the goal against Arsenal? I mean, I've seen multiple of his goals. There's that. Was it a goal or an assist that he made against Everton when Newcastle were thumping Everton? When he literally dribbled past all players that came before him. I mean, he is good. He is impressive. But for me, he's not in the same bracket with Ronaldo Nazario da Lima, with Romario, with Gerd Muller, with all those greats. With all those greats, he's not in that realm. He's not in that realm. Miroslav Klose, he's not in. For me, he's not in that realm. I mean, Samuel Eto'o would challenge him. Yeah, exactly. He did dribble. He dribbled through an entire team. He's like a video game player. That's how he looked in that moment. That's how he looked in that moment. But all I'm trying to say is that I think I'll choose a different striker for me. You know, when it comes to the best strikers, that I've come to watch. Robert Lewandowski. I mean, guy is still banging in goals. Last season, I think he scored 25 goals in the Spanish La Liga. You should be a pundit. Your knowledge is A class. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm a work in progress. So when I look at all those strikers over the years, I mean, they're impressive. They're very, very impressive. Again, by the way, when you're looking at football today, remember today football is played in a more structured manner as opposed to what it used to be. Years gone by, it was your natural talent had to to be seen on the pitch. If you're a striker, you had to dribble past players to score. If you're an attacking midfielder, you had to dribble past players to provide an assist. If you're a winger, you had to dribble past a defender or two to bring in a cross. So, but today football is more structured. It's more structured. Design passes, patterns of play, and things like that. Back in the days, patterns of play were not that much. You knew that if I meet this team, it has so many players that can dribble, so I'm going to do a lot of running, or this team plays a lot of long balls and things like that. Isak will win the Ballon d'Or next season at Liverpool, guaranteed. Okay, let's wait and see. I mean, there's so many people waiting for the Ballon d'Or. Lamine Yamal is waiting for it. Kylian Mbappe is waiting for it. Vinicius Jr. is still waiting for it. I love patterns of play. People hate them though. I mean, I personally, I wouldn't say I hate them. I would say I have a love and hate relationship with them. Sometimes I feel it's too much. For example, whenever I watch Prime Barcelona, sometimes they pass that ball way too much. And I was like, nah, at least go ahead and score. Go and have an attempt on goal. Let the keeper have some action. Let him save the ball, Let somebody strike that ball from distance. And, they keep passing it around until forever. The year replicated that literally at Manchester City at some point. When you look at, I think, 2017-2018 season and the subsequent season, 18-19, you go back to Bayern Munich between 2013 and 2016, again, Pep Guardiola. So sometimes, even the Arsenal that I support, sometimes they pop that ball sideways, midways, and I'm fed up with it. I'm like, then players reach the final third, that's in front of the 18 yards box and around that region, and sometimes they want to literally walk that ball into the back of the net, and I'm thinking to myself, why don't you just try and strike the ball from distance? Do a Frank Lampard, do a Xabi Alonso, do a Jordan Ruiz, even though it did not come one too often, Try and strike that ball from distance and see what happens. I believe Cameroon will win AFCON and the next World Cup. World Cup, they won't win. AFCON, they could, The next AFCON comes in late December. It will be hosted by Morocco. I was watching the news and, some of their stadiums are going through upgrades and renovations, panel beatings, and the expectation, according to the organizing committee or the Royal Federation of Moroccan football, I did say that they expect works to be done by the end of September. So, and we should have a very good tournament on our hands. So yeah, I wish all teams the best of luck, including the Uganda Cranes. I'll be cheering for the Uganda Cranes. I know we won't win the tournament, but every time Uganda has not made it to the Africa Cup of Nations in years gone by, besides 2004, where I supported Tunisia and they went on to win it. I think they beat Cameroon in the final by a goal to nil. Was it Cameroon that they beat? I start to be corrected, but maybe that. But beyond that, I've always been a supporter to Ghana until most recently. I mean, they're no longer the Ghana that I used to watch between 2006 and 2010, maybe 2012, 13, around that period. They are no longer the same team that I used to enjoy watching so much. So, but they're that team that I used to support every time Uganda never made it to the Africa Cup of Nations, because I mean we had to wait for 39 years for us to make a reappearance at the continental showcase. So yeah, you say it's going to be an amazing tournament. Hopefully. I mean, if it can be better than Africa AFCON 2023 that was played in 2024, I'm up for it. I mean, when you go back to, you know, in previous videos on the channel, I said we had the best AFCON ever, the one that I'd ever watched, in terms of entertainment, in terms of fun, you know, turn up. Of course, Ivory Coast, first of all, qualifying from the group stage as one of the third best teams, and then going on to win it. Of course, they had the home advantage, but that notwithstanding, they had sacked their manager at the time and, you know, handed over the role to an interim, you know, deputy. So, and he carried them through until the final, and they beat, I think they beat Nigeria by 2-1. Simon Adingra voted Young Player of the Year. The Nigerian captain, his name is eluding me. The Nigerian captain voted Player of the Tournament. You know, so it was a very, very good competition, really. It was a very good tournament. Yes, the Ivory Coast striker, formerly at Sebastian Hatzler, scoring in the final. You remember he had recovered from cancer and things like that. So it always built up to a very, very good story, really, in whichever angle you looked at it. I always thought Nigeria would have won a World Cup by now. I mean, Nigeria, yes, they've had some great talents over the years. You know, players like Agustino Okocha, Vincent Enyama, the goalkeeper. They've gone through generations, Obafemi Martins, you know, and so many others, you know, in terms of players that have been really, really great or good, you know. But I don't think they've ever come close. In any case, teams that have tried to come as close, you remember against Ghana in South Africa, 2010, being knocked out by Taribo West. Yeah. LFC says, I'm back. Oh, LFC was earlier on with us and he had gone to sleep because he's a bit sickly, but it's a pleasure to be back with us. So, Niche fan, I hope you remember Ghana in 2010 being knocked out by Uruguay. Luis Suarez's handball, that's why he's not loved. You can't sleep. I understand. I understand. By the way, this is what happens. Sometimes even when you're sick, if you're not accustomed to going to bed early, even when you go to bed early, you may not catch sleep. You may stay in bed for like an hour or two without catching sleep, end up leaving bed. Then you remember Senegal in 2002, they came close and they got knocked out by Turkey, that Turkey that had players like Hassan Sassi, you know, in 2002. Of course, one of our own assistant referees, or a referee at the time, Ari Tom Sange, was accused of, you know, foul play in that game, but you know, the people thought there's a bit of foul play. Watching you makes me better. Thank you so much, LFC, for the kind words. Then of course Morocco in 2022 they came close when they were the first African team to reach the semi-finals. So they are the team that has ever come closest. Yeah, but Turkey are always good. Yes, not always. Sometimes they've been not good, especially during Euros. You know, they've not been good. But yeah, they used to be a good side. I remember Hassan Sassi because of, I think he had a bald head, you know, very, very good player at the time. And I think they got knocked out in the semi-finals by Brazil, who beat them, I think, by 2-0, probably. that Brazil of, Ronaldinho, Rivaldo, Nazario, Carlos, Cafu, Dunga, then Nelson Dida, some of those players, that were part of that team. That was in 2002. So but Turkey always okay. Anyways, guys, so we've digested your entire, 11 of all time. I've given you my disagreements here and there, but yeah, it's a good team. I don't know, but because LFC is a bit sickly, I won't ask him for his. Maybe he will give us his best 11 on another given day, and we'll get to discuss it. You say, I think there should be a tournament where continents compete. Where continents compete, like there are only 6 continents. There's Africa, there's North America, there's South America, there's Europe, there's Asia, and what? And Antarctica? Is it? Thanks for your analysis of my 11. You're welcome. You're welcome. So, I mean, if it's going to be a 16 tournament, unless you're going to play it as a round robin, because if you do a knockout, then you will end up with 3 teams after the first cohort of games. I mean, do you know what it means to choose? Yes, Oceania. Yes, Oceania. Thank you so much for the correction. Oceania. What countries are from Oceania, by that? I mean, I know Africa would take a beating. I know Asia would take a beating. South America would be, a good team. Europe would be a good team. North America, they would struggle. I feel. I mean, it's only what? USA and Canada in North America. Is there any other country from North America? Oh, is Mexico part of North America? I mean, they are all in CONCACAF. That's where they play, So imagine an all-African team versus your team. That would be a dream match. Okay. Yes, the player that I was looking for, the Nigerian captain, is called Trost Ekong. Yes, I remember the name, Trost Ekong. So, I mean, you remember, by the way, present-day African teams are not as good as the teams of yesterday. For example, you look at Riyad Mahrez in the evenings of his career, Sadio Mane, same evening of his career, Mo Salah is still good. You go back to players like Patrick Mboma of Cameroon. You go back to players like Okocha, Sami Kufo, the Nigerian defender who played for Bayern Munich. You go back for players like Taribo West. You go to South Africa. What was his name? The guy that played for Everton and Tottenham. Not Sami Hipia. I'm forgetting. Steven Pina. Yes, Steven Pina. Obafemi Martins played for Everton. And Newcastle, I think. No, actually, Obafemi Martins played for Newcastle. It was Yakubu Ayegbene who played for Everton, not Obafemi Martins. Yes, it was Yakubu Ayegbene who played for Everton. Apologies on that. So, you look at players like El Mohammadi in Egypt. The fact I'm forgetting those names. Egypt had that creme de la creme kind of team that won 3 consecutive Africa Cup of Nations between 2006, 2008, and 2010. That team, very, very impressive, very, very impressive team. You say I disagree. I think the African teams today are amazing. I mean, the Yaya Tourés are gone. Didier Drogba, Yves Tebile is gone, But anyways, every generation has its own goods, and I knew you were going to say Akraf Hakimi, Victor Osimhen, Carlos Baleba. Yeah, they're good players. Victor Boniface. There's great players there. Our own Dennis Masinde Onyango, very, very good goalkeeper, although he's in the evening of his career. He's about 40. He's been recalled to the national team. He had retired from the team, but he's been recalled out of retirement ahead of the FIFA World Cup qualifiers. We do have Uganda's an engagement against Somalia, I think. So, really, it can be that. So yeah, there's a great deal of many players. Thomas Partey currently at Villarreal now. Samuel Chikwueze blew hot and cold. I remember watching him at Villarreal. It looked good. He went to AC Milan. Did have the best of spells there. He's now at Fulham. I mean, yeah, Africa has the talent. They have the talent. When you combine it, there's a lot of very, very good talents. There's a lot of very, very good talent. The goalkeeper, Bono, we saw him with Al Hilal during the FIFA Club World Cup, and he was a very, very good goalkeeper. You remember in that game that they knocked out Manchester City by 4 goals to 3? I mean, he had so many immaculate saves, the goalkeeper, Bono, from Morocco. So, yeah, Africa do have a very, very decent team. But again, I think it will boil down to maybe tactical nuances and things like that. If we were to go on pure natural talent, like I said, a team from South America would be very, very difficult to play against, depending on how they assemble it. So yeah, you have to think about that. Your memory is like AI. It's so good. No, it's far from it. It is good. It is good, but it's not like AI. AI is much better. I mean, sometimes I struggle to remember names that when the name is there in the back of your mind, but you're struggling to bring it to the forefront. So yeah, but I think it's something that builds with time. I used to admire so many pundits on radio on how quickly they could point on names of players, in previous generations and things like that. So yeah, I can't remember half of this. Anyways, we bless the Lord. We bless the Lord that we can remember some of those things. So yeah, so when you go to South America, I mean, let's see. I do not know a lot of South American football when it comes to respective countries and their domestic leagues. So forgive my biasness that some of these players that I may mention are predominantly already playing in Europe. So, for example, Fede Valverde is from Uruguay. You have Vinicius Junior. I do not think Rodrigo Goes, in his current form, he would even get into that team. Do you think the USA made football their main sport? They would, if they made football their main sport, they would dominate. I think they would. I mean, you can never know. Until 2008, nobody thought Spain were going to dominate football. It's because in 2008 they win the Euros, and then they come into World Cup. They win the World Cup 2010 after losing their first game against Switzerland. I think it was by 0-0. Then they go on to win that World Cup. They come back in Euro 2012 and they win it. Then they sort of fizzled down. 2016, we know Portugal won it. 2020, Italy won it. 2024, they bounced back and won it. But after winning the Euros in 2012, you remember their appearance at the World Cup in Brazil 2014. They had a horrendous performance. You remember, I think Netherlands beat them by 4-1. You remember that flying header by Robin van Persie. So they had a very, very poor tournament. So we know Brazil dominated football for quite some time, but ever since 2002, they've never been the same Brazil. Ever since then, it's a team I do support Brazil, by the way. You look at Italy. Italy had their spell. France had their spell, but until 2018, when you have to go back to 1998, when they had last been dominant. You remember when they came back in 2002? You remember they were so poor. so poor. Did they even qualify for 2002? I stand to be corrected. But, so, I mean, every country has a moment when it gets to the top and they dominate. And I'm sure if, let's say, if USA invested in football on a good scale, had a very good league, they begin signing good players, then they can go on to be that. I mean, attracting the good players the way they are doing, although they are doing it, they're attracting those players in the evenings of their careers, the Luis Suarez, Sergio Busquets, Jordi Alba, Lionel Messi, Thierry Henry. You go back to, what's his name, the owner of Miami, David Beckham, yes, and those kinds of things. So if they do invest in their game, they can go on to become that. They invest in football academies. It may take a bit of time, but eventually they can become that. They can become that because football is all about investment, especially at the early stages. We know Germany is one of those teams that you could always bank on in a tournament to perform well. And that does not come as a given, So yeah, Brazil used to be incredible. They don't have the best players anymore. Yeah, I mean, but one day they will bounce back. One day they will bounce back. It's a series. It's more like a cycle. A team comes, dominates the scene, and then it goes, and then another comes like that. Sort of, it's often a cycle. Although it had been a while since we had seen it, we've not seen a team be as dominant as Spain was between 2008 and 2012. We've not seen that, But that was a very, very good generation of players that were predominantly from Barcelona and Real Madrid at the time, David Villa, Sergio Ramos, Sergio Busquets, Xavi, and Iniesta formed that midfield. Of course, you added in the anecdotes of, players like Cesc Fabregas, who was at Arsenal at the time, eventually left for Barcelona in 2010 after the World Cup, So you looked at Gerard Piqué, you looked at Charles Puyol, all at Barcelona. So, I mean, that kind of David Silva. So it was a very, very good cohort of players. You say Spain has the best players now. They have Lamine Yamal, Nico Williams, Pedri, Gavi. I mean, yeah, they do have Mikel Oyarzabal, Martin Zubimendi, Rodrigo Cascante, who many of us call Lodri. I mean, but defensively, I feel something is lacking. The goalkeeper, Unai Simon, and his deputy, Joan Garcia, I want to believe, sorry, not Joan Garcia, David Villa, Joan Garcia, those are all good goalkeepers. Then the attacking line, I feel, is lacking. Alvaro Morata, and not the best of words, but I mean, they've ever since Fernando Torres, when do you go back to say that, yeah, Spain have this outright striker, but they do not play with that format. They play with the Oyarzabals of this world, and they're still good. But yeah, they have a very, very decent team. Dani Olmo, very, very good players. So then, but also England has a very good team. England has a very good team because you look at players like Richard James, you look at players like Maz Lewis Kelly, youngster, Mark Kay, in that centre back. You look at Declan Rice. You look at now Phil Foden has sort of been frozen out. These are good players. These are good players. I mean, if you rewinded things a little bit back, there was Kyle Walker, there was Raheem Sterling, and Harry Kane was at the top of his game. He still is, literally. But England have a good team. Look at Ollie Watkins. I mean, I was watching some footage from their training today, from the training session, and I looked at those players. Morgan Rogers, they're not all of them are outstanding players or excellent players, but they're very, very good players. If a manager can get them to play as a team, they can be very, very impressive. They can be very, very impressive. what's his name? The former Chelsea player who is playing at AC Milan that has been recalled to the team for the first time since 2018. It's called what? I'm forgetting his name. Ruben Loftus-Cheek, you know. So, I mean, so yeah, I think you said no, we don't. Ken needs to be dropped. Really? Ken needs to be dropped? I wouldn't be so quick to drop him. I'll play. I would play Adam Wharton, Rice Palmer in the midfield, Jude Bellingham as a false nine. Wow. Okay. Okay. You know, you see, Judy Bellingham, Job Bellingham is equally coming up. You know, I mean, England they have a good team. They have a good team. They have a good team. You know, they have a good team. Really, really. In all honesty, they have a good team. They just need to play better as a team. I mean, you do not get to play 2 consecutive Euro finals when you're a bad team. You just don't. You do not get to reach the semi-finals of the World Cup when you're a bad team. You know, Saka is good. Yeah, Saka is good. Been a very, very reliable soldier in that England national team. Anyways, it's been 1 hour and 31 minutes. Nichifan, thank you so much for giving me very good engagement. You've made this debate worthwhile. Yeah, but we had Southgate who was crap. Southgate was crap. I mean, anyway, but you sacked the manager who had a 100% record. You know, that was Sam Allardyce. You sacked him after 1 game, which he won. Very, very interesting. It was only for 1 month, and then certain things had happened. I think they related something to do with betting or something, and FA decided not to ban their reputation. Big Sam, you know. So, anyways, it is what it is. But I think Gary Southgate. Okay, people are saying Gary Southgate was crap, but go back to that team of 2006 at the World Cup. Then you go back to the team that Seven Goran Eriksson managed. I think after Fabio Capello had exited. I mean, what did they achieve? Because in 2006, I think England were knocked out by Portugal in the quarterfinals. When you go to South Africa, they had a bad tournament. So, I mean, Gary Southgate has done much, much better than many of his predecessors. So, really, while you know, people had their views, you know, issues with him here and there, overall, what he was able to, where he was able to take, you know, England was good, you know, it was good. So anyways, thank you so much, Nichifan, for your time. It's been really, really nice having you. Thank you so much, LFC, for, you know, sparing the moment to be with us, even though you're ill. We pray for your quick recovery. And every single one of you that managed to chip in for tonight's broadcast. Let's look to do this again tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. and respectively at 11 p.m. We will be digesting more. Tomorrow, I think tomorrow's topic, today morning we did discuss about, my best signings of the transfer window. Then on the channel, there's a video of who had the best transfer window out of the top 6, and that kind of content. But we will be back tomorrow. Otherwise, have a blessed night and see you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye for now.